A powerful blast has struck the Syrian capital, killing 31 people and injuring dozens more. The explosion also caused severe damage, shattering windows and sending a cloud of smoke above the city. When it comes as the Free Syrian Army opposition group has given Hezbollah a 48-hour deadline to stop shelling its locations from neighbouring Lebanon. Our Middle East correspondent Paula Sleer has the latest.
A car bomb has exploded near the headquarters of the ruling Ba'ath Party in central Damascus. It happened in front of a barrier where regular troops are stationed. This is also not far from the Russian embassy. According to eyewitnesses, there was gunfire after the blast that seemed to come from the vicinity of the Russian embassy compound and the building there. Now, both government and opposition forces are confirming that this blast in fact did take place, but we are hearing from opposition fighters and opposition sources and activists that there were at least 2 other simultaneous explosions. We have no independent confirmation of this at this stage. State media is reporting that there have been many casualties. They are calling it a suicide bombing that was carried out, to quote, by terrorists. There are also reports, as of yet unconfirmed, that authorities have in their possession a truck that was carrying up to some 300 kilograms of explosives. Now, there seems to have been a large number of children among the wounded, and this is largely because it happened near a school. Syrian television is broadcasting footage of at least 4 bodies that have been thrown along a main street, and also footage of firefighters that are dousing dozens of burning vehicles that were in the vicinity. This conflict is likely and in fact is already spilling across the border. Today, Thursday, is the expiry date of a 48-hour deadline that was issued by Syrian rebels to the Lebanese political party Hezbollah. Now, the ultimatum says that Hezbollah needs to stop shelling Free Syrian Army-controlled areas, or otherwise it will retaliate. It follows several days of clashes between Syrian rebels and Hezbollah militants near the Lebanese border. So far, Hezbollah has not officially responded to this threat. It certainly has broad regional implications that we're now seeing this kind of conflict between 2 warring factions on either side of the border. And at the same time, if indeed the ultimatum passes today and there is no response, it also seems to present a scenario in which you have the Syrian rebels giving a lot of hard and war talk, but actually not following it up with much action on the ground. So they'll be hard-pressed to make good on their threats.
Let's get more on this now from Middle East expert Tariq Ali. Thanks for joining us here on RT today. What do you think this recent attack was aimed at?
Well, it's obvious. The recent attack was aimed at the Syrian government. It was aimed to destabilize it further. And at the same time, it was a very clear response to those who are arguing, like myself and others, that there should be a political settlement, that this ugly stalemate should not be allowed to continue any longer, and that the saner elements within the opposition should sit down and see what can be sorted out even at this late stage. Because if this doesn't happen, the war will expand, as we are seeing, into Lebanon. And then anything's possible. Effectively, the Syrian rebel forces trying to topple the government have not had open public support, which they wanted, in terms of the NATO strike bombers or the United States coming to back them. And they're effectively trying to maintain their position during this ugly transitional period to see how they can keep the situation destabilized. But it is not in the interest of the Syrian people, in my opinion.
You mentioned Lebanon there. I mean, how worrying a development is it that the Free Syrian Army has apparently set an ultimatum for Hezbollah, threatening to shell its positions in Lebanon?
Well, if they can carry that out, which is an open question, because their bark is often worse than their bite. But were they to do that, they would be dealing with a totally different entity than they deal with in Syria, because Hezbollah is a popular mass organization with support of a very sizable section of the Lebanese population. And what that could do could be to reopen the wounds of previous civil wars in Lebanon, which no one wants, neither Hezbollah nor its opponents in that country.
If this happened, I mean, might Western countries use this conflict as a means of targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon even?
Well, they've never stopped doing that. Don't forget that the last attempt to crush Hezbollah was made by the Israelis, who invaded Lebanon, bombed Beirut, tried to crush Hezbollah, but suffered reverses themselves. So I think they've learned from that it is not easy to wipe out a movement with popular support and popular bases. They've learned that lesson the hard way, and were they to try it again, the results would not be too dissimilar.
And as for finding a solution, the Syrian opposition coalition earlier said it's ready for talks, but only if President Assad has no role in the transitional government. So where is the way forward, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, this is a critical moment for Syria. Just look at the ordinary people in this country suffering now for, dozens of months. It's an appalling condition in which to bring up children or to live everyday lives. And both sides have to make compromises. And if the opposition is prepared to talk to the Ba'ath leadership without Assad, then in my opinion, so be it. It's not a defeat for anyone. It's just as a sign that it's time to recognize reality. Assad should leave, resign, and talks should open up. I don't think that should be seen as a defeat. It'd be a victory for the entire Syrian people were that to happen, and it would reassure many, many minorities in the country.
OK, we'll leave it there. Tariq Ali, historian and Middle East expert, thank you for joining us here on RT today.
Thank you.